She was standing in her bathroom, brush in hand, and for a moment she just stopped. Not because of the pain, not because of a sound, but because of the hair wrapped around the bristles, more than there should have been, more than she could keep pretending was normal, and because of the reflection staring back at her. A reflection that still looked like her, mostly, but something had shifted. Something in the volume, in the texture, in the way the light caught the top of her head and revealed something she had been spending months finding new ways to hide. And in that moment, standing quietly in a bathroom no one else was in, she felt something crack open inside her chest. Not dramatically, not with tears or a breakdown, just a quiet, private grief, the kind that has nowhere to go and no one to explain it to, because from the outside, everything looks completely fine. This is the part of menopause that nobody puts on the list. The list always includes hot flashes and mood swings and sleep problems and brain fog, the symptoms that are loud enough to name at a doctor's appointment. But hair loss lives in a different register entirely. It is intimate. It is daily. It is the kind of change that accumulates so gradually that by the time you truly see it, it has already been happening for a year, maybe 2. You look at a photograph from a birthday party 3 years ago, and you study your own hair with a strange mix of recognition and longing. You remember that hair. You remember how it moved. You remember not thinking about it at all. And you realize that the moment you stopped not thinking about it was the moment something fundamental shifted in how you move through the world. You start angling yourself slightly away from cameras. You learn which side of your part looks fuller, and you stick to it obsessively. You buy volumizing products you do not fully believe in, and you use them anyway, every morning, as a kind of ritual optimism that never quite pays off. And you do all of this quietly, privately, without telling anyone. Because how do you explain to someone who cannot see it just how much this is costing you? The most damaging belief that surrounds menopausal hair loss is also the most common one, that it is simply inevitable. That once the hormones start to shift, the hair goes with them, and the graceful thing to do is accept it. Women are told this, sometimes explicitly, sometimes in the gentle, patronizing tone of, well, this is just a normal part of aging, and many of them believe it for years. They stop looking for answers. They stop expecting change. They spend money on treatments that address the surface while the actual cause continues, uninterrupted, underneath. And they carry a private shame about caring as much as they do, because they have also been told that caring this much about their hair is somehow superficial. Let me be very clear. It is not superficial. Your hair is part of how you know yourself. It is part of how you present yourself to the world, how you feel walking into a room, how you look at your own face in the mirror and feel like that face belongs to you. Losing it, even partially, even gradually, is a real loss. And it deserves a real explanation. Here is what is actually happening inside the body during menopause that directly affects the hair, and why understanding it changes everything. As estrogen and progesterone decline, the hair growth cycle becomes profoundly disrupted. Under healthy hormonal conditions, the majority of your hair follicles are in the anagen phase, the active growth phase, at any given time. As estrogen drops, follicles move earlier and more frequently into the telogen phase, which is the resting phase that precedes shedding. The result is that more hairs are shed simultaneously, and fewer new ones grow in to replace them. The strands that do grow come in finer and more fragile, with less pigment, less elasticity, less of that natural shine and movement that healthy hair has. At the same time, the scalp itself changes. The sebaceous glands that produce the natural oils which keep the scalp moisturized and the hair shaft protected become less active. The scalp grows drier, more sensitive, more prone to the kind of low-grade inflammation that further compromises follicular health. And then there is the cortisol factor, the layer of this picture that most women never hear about, and that explains why so many standard treatments fall short. Beginning in the late 40s, simultaneously with the onset of perimenopause, cortisol levels in women begin to rise. This is not just a response to external stress. It is a physiological pattern linked to the hormonal transition itself. An elevated cortisol does something devastating to the scalp. It triggers inflammation in the follicles, restricts the microcirculation that delivers nutrients and oxygen to the hair roots, pushes follicles into prolonged resting phases, and increases androgens like DHT that directly miniaturize the follicle over time. So the picture is not simply hormones dropped and hair thinned. The picture is declining estrogen and progesterone weakened the growth cycle, elevated cortisol inflamed and starved the follicular environment, and the combination created exactly the conditions under which hair loss accelerates and persists, regardless of what you put on the surface. Now I want to tell you how a woman I was speaking to described the moment she first heard about tsubaki oil, camellia oil, the ancient Japanese hair care ritual that women in Japan have been practicing for centuries. She said it felt almost embarrassingly simple. She had spent so much money on clinical treatments, on dermatologist consultations, on prescription foams and laser devices and high-end serums with ingredient lists that read like chemistry textbooks. And then one evening, following a thread of curiosity about why older Japanese women consistently seemed to maintain remarkably thick, healthy hair well into their 50s and 60s, she found herself reading about a cold-pressed oil from the seeds of the Camellia japonica flower, an oil that geishas had used as a daily scalp treatment, that women in rural Japan had passed down through generations as part of their most basic beauty ritual, and that had been a staple of Japanese hair culture since the Edo period, not as a medicine, not as a clinical intervention, as a ritual, as a daily act of care. She said she almost dismissed it, almost, but something made her keep reading. And what she found was not mysticism or folklore, it was chemistry that made complete, coherent sense. Camellia oil is extraordinarily high in oleic acid, a monounsaturated fatty acid with a molecular structure so similar to the skin's natural sebum that it absorbs into the scalp rapidly and deeply, without the heaviness or residue that most oils leave behind. It does not sit on the surface. It penetrates into the scalp tissue and into the hair shaft itself, restructuring the cuticle, filling in the microscopic gaps and damage that dryness and hormonal changes create, dramatically reducing breakage and the brittleness that menopausal hair is so prone to. It is also rich in vitamins A, C, and E, which work as antioxidants directly in the scalp tissue, reducing oxidative stress, calming the low-grade chronic inflammation that disrupts follicular function, and supporting the cellular environment that healthy hair growth depends on. It contains squalene, a naturally occurring compound in healthy sebum that becomes progressively depleted with age, leaving the scalp less protected and less able to maintain the moisture barrier that follicles need. And it has a remarkable ability to improve microcirculation in the scalp, something that traditional Japanese massage techniques used in combination with the oil have amplified for generations. When blood flows more freely to the follicles, nutrients arrive, oxygen arrives, the follicles wake up, and what had been a hostile, depleted, inflamed environment begins to shift into something that can actually support growth again. This is why the women who discovered tsubaki oil and used it with consistency, not once, not occasionally, but as a devoted ritual 2 or 3 times a week, began to notice things changing. Not overnight, not in 2 weeks, but over months of patient, intentional care in ways that felt quietly astonishing. If you are a woman over 45, and what I am describing resonates with you, if you are living with the daily quiet grief of menopausal hair loss, and you have been looking for real information, not just marketing promises, there is a complete guide available right now in the first link in the description below this video. It walks through everything: the hormonal biology behind menopausal hair loss, the role of the scalp environment, the traditional practices like tsubaki oil that women around the world are returning to, and how to approach hair recovery in a way that is gentle, natural, and grounded in actual understanding. It is there for you whenever you are ready. The emotional arc of this experience, from the first moment you notice the extra hair in the brush to the moment you start to believe recovery might be possible, is one that deserves to be told honestly. Because between those 2 moments, there is a landscape of small losses that compound in ways nobody warns you about. The way you stop wearing your hair up because the ponytail feels embarrassingly thin. The way certain lighting in certain rooms becomes something you dread and navigate around. The way a compliment about your hair from someone who knew you before menopause lands like a small, painful reminder of distance traveled. And the way you stop expecting things to change, which is, in many ways, the most damaging part. Because the moment you stop expecting change, you stop looking for it. And the moment you stop looking, you miss the information that could actually help you. The women who have come through this, who have gone from daily grief in the bathroom mirror to genuinely feeling their confidence return, almost universally describe a turning point that began not with a dramatic treatment, but with understanding. With finally, truly understanding what was happening in their bodies and why. And with discovering that there were things they could do, real, accessible, natural things that addressed the actual problem instead of just papering over the surface of it. Using Tsubaki oil as a scalp ritual is one part of that. The warmth of the oil between the palms before application. The slow, circular massage that stimulates circulation and feels in a way that is hard to explain but immediately recognizable, like caring for yourself in a language your body understands. The overnight treatment that gives the follicular environment hours to absorb what it has been missing. The gradual noticing, over weeks and then months, of hair that feels different, stronger, less likely to snap when combing, starting to show the early signs of new growth at the temples and the part. These are real changes, reported by real women who made this part of their routine with consistency and patience. And alongside those physical changes, something else begins to happen. A shift in the relationship with the mirror, a quieting of the vigilant scanning for new thinning, the anxious parting and reparting to check. A gradual return of something that had been absent for so long it had started to feel permanent. The quiet confidence of a woman who feels at home in her own body. There is a method, a complete step-by-step approach for women dealing with menopausal hair loss, available in the pinned comment below this video. It brings together traditional scalp nourishment practices like the Tsubaki oil ritual, with the deeper understanding of what hormonal balance actually requires during this phase of life. Because the external care and the internal health are not separate stories, they are two parts of the same recovery. And the women who work on both simultaneously are the ones who see results that last. Here is what the research confirms, and why specialists in women's health and hormonal aging are paying increasing attention to this intersection of topics. Studies on scalp microcirculation show that improved blood flow to the follicular unit is one of the most significant factors in hair regrowth, and traditional massage techniques combined with penetrating oils like camellia have a measurable effect on that circulation. Research on follicular inflammation, the chronic, low-grade inflammatory state that elevated cortisol and hormonal disruption create, shows that antioxidant-rich topical treatments applied consistently can reduce that inflammation and create a measurably healthier follicular environment. And the growing body of work on adaptogens and natural compounds that support cortisol regulation, including specific forms of ashwagandha, phytoestrogens from red clover, traditional herbs like sage and chasteberry, shows that when the hormonal environment is supported from within, the scalp benefits in ways that no external treatment alone can replicate. This is not alternative medicine versus conventional medicine. This is the complete picture, assembled from multiple lines of evidence, pointing clearly in the direction of an approach that is both traditional and scientifically coherent. An approach that respects the intelligence of the body and works with its biology rather than against it. An approach that women who have been dismissed, who have been told to simply accept the changes, who have spent years in quiet grief in front of the mirror, deserve to know exists. You are not too late. Your follicles are not beyond reach. The hair you are losing is not a verdict about what the rest of this chapter looks like. It is a signal, a specific, interpretable signal from a body that is going through one of the most complex hormonal transitions of a lifetime. And when you learn to read that signal correctly, when you understand what your scalp needs and what your hormones need, and why these two things are more connected than anyone ever told you, you gain something that no shampoo or serum can give you. You gain agency. You gain the ability to act with intention instead of fear. And you gain access to a version of this experience that is defined not by what you are losing, but by what you are learning to restore. The strands on the brush do not have to be the final word. The thinning reflection does not have to be the permanent one. Women over 45 all over the world are discovering this, in the slowness of a scalp massage, in the warmth of ancient oil between their hands, in the growing understanding of what their bodies have always been capable of, and they are coming back to themselves, one strand at a time.